To my dear friend who lives in a world next to mine, I am writing with a steady heart and a bright screen. I hope this finds you safe and curious tonight. I am typing from my small desk where the clock shows a time that might already be different for you. In my world the map is not carved in stone but penciled by what most of us truly remember. When our shared recall tips past a certain line, the world shifts to match it. We call this a reconciliation, and it arrives like quiet weather. No sirens sound, yet everyone hears the change in the way the room breathes. A street moves one block east because enough people remember walking that way for years. A school mascot swaps colours because alumni swear it always looked that way in spring. The small things change more often than the big things because safety rules keep us grounded. Bridges do not vanish under buses and hospitals do not flicker out of service. A buffer smooths the moment so a driver feels only a light tug on the road. We live with these edits and we try to be gentle with one another when they land. I learned as a child to ask what time of record someone is using before I'd argue with them. My teachers trained us to speak with care and to date our claims like photographs. You might find they're formal, but it keeps family dinners calm. We even set the mood for debates with small prompts that invite honesty rather than victory. When a reconciliation is near, we sense it in our timelines like a shift in the air. News anchors do not predict the change, but they list the topics under review. They remind us to hold steady and to wait for the ruling that decides what will stand. You would probably ask who makes that ruling and whether it can be trusted. We place that weight on memory courts which are slow and careful by design. A memory court is a hall of scribes, archivists, jurors and ordinary people trained to listen. They do not decide what we should remember but whether a claim is safe and fair to let stand. When a wave of recall could harm lives, a judge issues a recall warrant. The warrant freezes a change while we test evidence of source and pressure. Evidence is not only documents and footage but also patterns in the spread of stories. We check for paid campaigns that guide people toward a convenient past. We check for synthetic prompts that make a memory feel warm in the mouth. We also listen for quiet communities whose memories are softer but deep. Once a verdict comes, the change either completes or dissolves back into talk. You might think this sounds like living in a story that edits itself. It does feel like that some days, and yet most days, are ordinary. People still brush their teeth and walk their dogs and drink tea by the window. The world changes less than our imaginations fear because we love routine. Routine acts like ballast even when names and dates shuffle around the edges. I work as a reporter inside one of these courts, and I write what people say with care. My hands are steady on the keys, but my heart is often not steady at all. I believe the work matters because stories shape thresholds and thresholds shape streets. Your world may say facts stand alone, but in mine facts stand with us. We try to guard against fraud without silencing sincere difference. Sincere difference is a tree from which better fruit can grow. I promised to skip explanations and speak plainly, so I will tell you about this week. This week a new case walked in on quiet shoes and then filled the entire hall. The case began with a rumour that felt like a breeze through old curtains. People began to recall that a certain company had never mistreated its workers. The recall was warm and polished, and every detail came with the glow of a fairy tale. I saw ages in that glow because natural memories have scuffs like coins in a pocket. The mood in the city tilted and stock prices leaned in the same direction. Families who had carried pain from that scandal felt their grip loosen against their will. The court issued a recall warrant and the hall grew very still. I was assigned to record witness testimony and to keep a clean log of every word. The first witness was a woman who still had the old contract with missing hours. She spoke about the night shifts that slipped into morning with no pay. She remembered a gate that clicked shut and a supervisor who used a voice like a lid. She remembered names and muscles and the smell of cold oil on the floor. Her voice shook, but she did not stumble, and the court breathed with her. Then the second witness stepped up with a smile that felt rehearsed. He remembered a generous employer and a scholarship fund with his name on it. He remembered a festival where the chief executive poured tea for everyone in the square. He remembered a plaque I had never seen and a parade route that cut down the street that did not exist that year. I typed every word, and the court listened and the city polled in 2 directions at once. We asked for infrastructure records and hospital logs and union newsletters from that season. We looked for traces of strain and recovery in numbers that do not care who is kind. The numbers told a story of injuries that peaked and over time that climbed like ivy. Public stories told the opposite with smiles and soft focus and a choir. Our analysts found a pattern in how the glowing version spread. A pattern looked like gentle rain falling on chosen roofs. Ads and influencer posts had seeded a past that helped current prophets. You would have seen the same play in your world but without the power to flip the street. Here a seeded past can become the past if we do not catch its hands in time. The company denied shaping the recall and pointed to alumni who spoke fondly of their time. Some alumni were sincere and their warmth was real and earned. Sincerity alone is not proof when a tide can carry many swimmers at once. I am meant to stay neutral, but I am also human and I have my own stake. My mother is one of the people who lives on the seam of this case. In one version she worked at that plant and her spine remembers the weight. In the Polish version she ran a craft shop and taught calligraphy on quiet afternoons. When the city leans toward the craft shop she smiles without knowing why. When the city leans back toward the plant she wakes with a stiff back and an old joke about steel. I love both versions of her and I keep tea ready for each. My fear is not only for truth but also for the gentle people who will be pulled back and forth. Our rules prevent harm during flips, but the soul still feels the tug. I wish I could ask you how your world would hold the weight of such a question. In your world, when people misremember a map, the map does not move. In mine, the map can bend, yet we insist that dignity does not bend with it. The court calls this the human anchor, and it guards the parts of life we must never edit. The human anchor protects health, safety, and equal treatment under law. It does not protect reputations that were not earned by real care. While this case unfolds, daily life still runs at street level in little scenes. The cafe near the court posts the soup of the day and also the date of record. The sign reads tomato, basil, and yesterday since 9 in the morning. The chef does this so that a dish does not appear in a menu that pretends to be older. My city expects honesty in small things because small things are how we practice for large things. Children learn a class called critical remembering alongside maths and reading. They practice telling a friend a happy story without slipping into wishful edits. They practice listening for quiet memories that do not shout. They practice changing their mind without shame when new evidence fits better. Weddings include a pledge called shared recall vows, and it is both sweet and practical. Partners promise to respect a set of key memories that keep a family steady. The vows do not block change, but they ask for patience before shifting family ground. Couples choose a home baseline for events like births and house moves. It sounds rational, yet it is also tender because it says we will carry our past together. Sports are an adventure because results can retro-change when a city insists a goal crossed a line. Leagues keep dual tables and pay both teams for the headache. Fans debate in good humour on most days and show grace to those who cheer a team that just vanished from a record. I keep a small shelf of orphan histories in my flat and it holds artefacts and no longer match public memory. There is a ticket stub to a concert that does not exist in the official archive. There is a flyer for a protest that moved to a week earlier due to a flip. Holding these things reminds me that care is owed to people who stand in the rain of change. It also reminds me to laugh at the sheer oddity of a life where yesterday keeps learning new stats. I promised to keep this letter friendly and vivid, so here is a day from start to finish. I wake early because reconciliations prefer dawn, when roads are quiet. I brew tea that smells like citrus and bread. I check a bulletin that lists the topics under review and I scan for the case with my mother in it. The bulletin is calm by design to keep hearts level. I cycle to work on a route that sometimes tilts a block when the city remembers it used to be simpler. At the court I settle into my chair and warm my hands before the keyboard. The hall smells like paper and polish and quiet electricity. Lawyers speak in gentle steps because the judge hates grandstanding. We hear testimony from a nurse who treated injured workers during the season in question. She recalls wrists and fall injuries and supply shortages that a generous company would have solved. We hear from a festival organizer who remembers a parade with the company logo floating above the square. The organizer cannot show permits for that year and asks for patience while looking. The court asks many questions about how memories spread in the city. A researcher maps the spread like vines and shows where sunlight falls faster. The map reveals certain neighborhoods were Suktin-sponsored nostalgia. I keep typing as my chest grows tight because the pattern resembles other cases I have seen. When money stares the past, it usually tries to look wholesome and old. It tries to make people say of course and not I wonder why. The defense calls the data scientist who argues that good news travels because people need hope. That statement is true in general, yet here it hides the hand that launched the hope. The judge asks how to weigh warmth against wages paid late and the hall goes still. After court I ride the lift down with a clerk who loves baseball and we talk about teams that never were. He says he misses a pitcher who is legendary in the current table but also a stranger to his son. We laugh in the easy way of two people who understand that laughing is one way to carry a load. I stop at the market where the fishmonger sets two prices when a flip is pending. He honours both until the bulletin clears the confusion so no one feels cheated. The rule in our market is simple and kind, which is the best kind of rule. The evening brings a call from my mother and her voice holds two seasons at once. She asks about my day and then asks if I remember the craft shop with the warm lights. I tell her I remember a plant gate and a thermos of tea shared on a bench after midnight shift. We do not fight about it because love is more important than being the winner in a memory contest. I make a promise to bring her to the court on a quiet day so she can see the work. She prefers the craft shop version of herself because that world is kinder to her back. I prefer the plant version to be known because that world is kinder to justice. I think both desires can live in one home if we learn to talk softly and look each other in the eyes. On my way to bed I read letters like yours from other worlds that do not sway with recall. Your letters feel like anger stones in a pocket and I cherish the weight. You ask sometimes how we decide who counts in the threshold. The answer is careful and always being improved by audit and public review. We wait trust by past honesty and we watch for bots and we study clusters to see if a push is unnatural. The system is imperfect and it is also less corruptible than it used to be. We learned to separate genuine community drift from paid wind. Minority memories receive special care because history has erased people before and must not do so again. We keep sanctuaries for orphaned histories where families can visit a version that no longer rules the street. It does not solve all harm, but it gives a place for grief and dignity to stand. When a sanctuary opens, we ring a small bell, and I always cry a little without shame. In my city people nod to one another in those rooms and speak in present tense on purpose. The present tense says you matter right now even if your version is not the one we walk on. I want to tell you about a small joy that arrived during this heavy week. A child brought in a crayon map drawn from memory of the old park. The swings were closer to the pond in her mind and she had remembered birds that the current plan forgot. The court thanked her and no change was made, yet the park boarder added bird boxes anyway. We celebrate small wins like that because they do not require a flip to be good. Earlier I said I try to stay neutral, and that is still true, but I also promised honesty. I feel this case because I have seen grief bend people until they are easy to sway. The company offers a past that feels light in the hand, and who would not want a light past? But a light past can float away with the wind, while a true past can carry us when we are tired. My mother taught me to build shelves that do not collapse when a gust of recall hits. She taught me to label boxes and to say I do not know when I am not sure. She taught me a joke that plants steel in the back when a boss forgets your name. That joke lives even in the craft sharp version, which is one way, and know that core truth survives flips. I hope the court will rule to protect workers and to expose any paid memory seeders. I hope it will also comfort people who dreamed of a kinder era and now feel foolish. No one is foolish for wanting kindness. We will build it in the open where it can last without tricks. You once asked whether people here ever tire of constant awareness. Yes, we do, and that is why we hold quiet nights without screens or debates. On those nights we tell stories that do not try to win. We talk about music and bread, and someone always brings a violin that knows the way home. We talk about grandparents who lived through 3 versions of the same neighborhood and still planted tulips each spring. We talk about a street mural that survived 2 Vlits because color counts as a human need. We talk about friendship until the lamplight grows warm and steady and the room stops spinning. I am grateful that your world reads these letters because your distance gives me a clear mirror. You tell me when I am drifting into jargon and I try to climb back into simple words. You remind me that not everything needs a policy to be kind. I remind you that a little policy can keep kindness from being stolen. Today I tried to speak in simple steps and to keep each sentence clean for your voice tools. I hope the sound will carry the feeling without confusion. If you were here I would show you the court gallery where portraits hang of cases that shaped our city. There is a frame for a case that restored a festival after a false recall tried to erase it. There is a frame for a case that protected a dialect spoken by a small group near the river. There is a frame for a case that outlawed synthetic nostalgia in election season. I pass those frames each morning and I breathe slower for a moment. The air feels honest in that hallway and my hands warm up before I touch the keys. I picture you walking beside me and asking gentle questions in a soft voice. I imagine your smile when I tell you that our cafeteria finally fixed the soup queue. People used to remember the line on the left and others the line on the right. Now we have 2 small lines and both are true and the soup is hotter for everyone. That is the kind of solution I love because it respects memory without making a big speech. You might enjoy how we label museum plaques with both the current version and notable past versions. Visitors can press a small button to hear a story from an older timeline recorded by those who lived it. Children press all the buttons because children love options. The museum guards do not mind because laughter is part of the record too. I realize I have not told you how my mother is tonight. She is resting after a long day and she asked me to share her love with you. She said she hopes your world treats workers better than ours did during that season. She said she hopes your world never needs memory courts to fix what respect could have fixed alone. I promised to deliver her wish intact. I also promised to fight for a verdict that honours the hours she carried in the dark. If the court rules against her version, I will still bring her flowers and we will sit in a sanctuary and breathe. Breathing is the oldest kind of recall that no one can counterfeit. I want to leave you with a question that I carry like a compass. Which memory would you defend in a fair hall even if most of your neighbours remembered something else? Do not answer now because good answers ask for slow tea in the chair. Write to me when the words are ready and I will sit with them as if they were a guest. Before I close I will tell you one last scene from the case. Wait till I, a junior clerk, found the probe that links the glowing narrative to a paid campaign. The evidence is not complete, but the line is clearer than it was this morning. I felt a surge of relief mixed with worry because the city does not like to admit it was nudged. The judge will handle that feeling with the steady hands we trust on our best days. If the verdict confirms manipulation, we will clean the record and offer care to those who feel adrift. Care is not a prize for being right, but a gift for being human. I will take my mother to the river after the ruling, and we will feed the birds. We will watch the water, which flows forward in every version I have seen. Water is our reminder that movement can still feel like peace. I think your world would like that river because it asks for nothing but attention. Thank you for reading this long letter from a desk that remembers several mornings at once. Thank you for letting my words sit beside your evening for a while. I wish I could send the smell of the night air through the wire because it is gentle and kind. I will settle for sending these lines with as much warmth as I can press into them. Your friend who lives in the world next to yours sends Carmen courage across the small gap. Thank you for staying with me to the very last line. If this letter moved you, please tap like so more friends can find us. Please subscribe so you will hear the next message while it arrives. Tell me your thoughts in the comments because your view shapes the journey we share. If you wish to support this channel, please use the QR code in the lower right or the link in the description. In the description you will also find links to other works from a very different series that you might enjoy. I am grateful for your time and your trust, and I hope to see you for the next story soon.